Today's message from Reverend Christian Sorensen was recorded January 22nd, 2017, and it's titled, Back to the Basics 2, What It Does. And today we welcome the spirit, the voice, beauty, and artistry of Nadine Risha. Links to her website and on Facebook can be found at joyouspodcast.com. Come visit us at seasidecenter.org or join us in Encinitas, California sometime, where we always have great music, a spirited message, and a joyful, loving, vibrant community that awaits you.
Well, good morning again, Seaside. Well, you already had a little taste of our guest artist. Wasn't she amazing with our call to worship? Yes. So she is no stranger to Seaside. There's a beautiful Nadine Risha. She actually travels. She's, again, been here to Seaside. She's one of the favorites of the movement. And it's been a while since she's been here, but we're really thrilled to have her back. The reason she hasn't been here is because she's been traveling around the world. We're talking Egypt and the Caribbean and all over the place. She's got this wonderful group that she's involved with. It's called the STARS, which stands for Singers Taking Action, Reaching Souls. So STARS, Singers Taking Action, Reaching Souls. And they travel the world singing and reaching souls and sharing their beautiful gift of music. So let's put together your hands for a wonderful welcome to a beautiful soul, a beautiful woman, beautifully clad, with a beautiful voice, the most beautiful Nadine Risha.
I need to come here more often if I get an introduction like that. I feel so beautiful. Hello, beautiful family. I'm so happy to see all of you and to be home. I feel so spiritually fed when I'm here and so honored that I get to give back to this wonderful community. So here's a song called Lighten Up the World.
Through the cosmos, all the love we feel spins away the fear, walking up the ladder, emanating power. Blessed Holy Spirit, guide us on our way, for we are courage and we are freedom for all the people. As we lighten up the world, yes, we are masters and we are heroes for all the kingdoms. As we lighten up the world, give me all your courage, give me all your sadness. You'll be filled with laughter only when you say that you are holy water, you are highly favored, blessing all the mountains, valleys, hills, and plains. For we are courage and we are freedom for all the people. As we lighten up the world, yes, we are masters and we are heroes for all the kingdoms. As we lighten up the world, as we lighten up, go on and show the love's the way. As we lighten up, have faith in every word you say. As we lighten up, give up the stories that we made. As we lighten up, go on and light the way. For we are holy water, we are highly favored, blessing all the mountains, valleys, hills, and plains. We are holy water, we are highly favored, blessing all the mountains, valleys, hills, and plains. For we are courage and we are freedom for all the people. As we lighten up the world, yes, we are masters and we are heroes for all the kingdoms. As we Yes, we are courage and we are freedom for all the people as we lighten up the world. Yes, we are masters and we are heroes for all the kingdoms as we lighten up the world. As we lighten
That is Nadine Risha. Oh my goodness, what a perfect song for today. We're masters of freedom. We lighten up the world. That is just so good. Thank you so much for that perfect song for today. And so what's so perfect about it is really the thrust of religious science, at least according to Ernest Holmes, who is our founder on the very first page. He talks about freedom. And that's what we were singing about, is that freedom as we lighten up the world. And that's what it's all about, is so we can free ourselves from whatever the constraints are, whatever the fears are, whatever the anxieties are, whatever are going on in our body that doesn't serve us. And so what we have been doing here at Seaside is joining the rest of the centers for spiritual living, which is what we call ourselves. And our teaching is, we call it The Science of Mind, which is the name of the book that has become our textbook, The Science of Mind. That's the teaching, and we're religious scientists practicing the science of mind in a spiritual community called Centers for Spiritual Living. What we tend to do is at the beginning of the year go back to the basics. And the first few chapters of The Science of Mind kind of is the abridged version of this big, thick book. And today the chapters happen to be the way it works and what it does. And I want to share with you from the very first paragraph of the way it works, where Ernest said, who needs these? Let's see what I do. Hey, the science of mind is not a special revelation of any individual. In other words, it wasn't like this great divine download to Ernest, or he didn't go behind a secret curtain where he was given the message from the angels to bring it back to us. He said that it's not a special revelation of any individual, which is what really makes it part of the New Thought movement. See, the New Thought movement deals with thought. It deals with consciousness. It doesn't deal with some prophecy a prophet gave us at some time long ago. There is a realm of thought that is available for all of us that isn't designated to the few chosen gurus and sages. It's available to all of us right here, right now, which is why it's part of the New Thought movement. Those other divine downloads are valuable and they have their place, but that's not part of the New Thought movement. And the New Thought movement, as I said last week from William James, it's America's unique contribution to the world body of theology. We're dealing in the realm of consciousness. So Ernest said, hey, this isn't a special revelation of any individual. Hey, I didn't get this revelation. Rather, it is the culmination of all the revelations. We take the good wherever we find it, and what we do is we make it our own insofar as we can understand it. The realization that good is universal and that as much good as any individual is able to incorporate into their life and use is what constitutes the science of mind and spirit. And that's really the secret of today's message. As much as any individual can incorporate into their life and use. So it's great to talk about these wonderful spiritual philosophies, but if your life isn't working, you don't quite have it down yet. We got a little bit more work to do. If all of a sudden, we're talking about these things and yet the body is having a physical challenge, there needs to be a shift that goes on so I can begin to understand the fuller picture here in my physical form. So when the challenge arises, I'm ready to deal with that. I came across an Aesop's fable this week about the wild boar and the fox. You may know it. The fox is out wandering in this desolate part of the forest, and he finds this wild boar sharpening his tusks on the tree. And the fox kind of laughs and says, what are you doing sharpening your tusks? There's nobody around, no fight going on, nothing to go eat. And he says, and what good would it do me to sharpen my tusks when in that moment I need them? I might as well sharpen them now. And I share that to point out that these basics we're working on now is the perfect time to be working on the basics. So when those times of challenge come our way, we're ready, we're prepared. And those basics that we can work on is the meditation, is the prayer, is the affirmation, is connecting with Spirit in times when things are good, when things are all right. So when we are challenged and when we do need to take the fight, our spiritual ability is sharpened and ready to go. Because what we'll come to recognize time and time again is that our happiness is not based upon situations. It's not situational, it's attitudinal. That our good is not based upon the circumstances that may or may not be happening, but rather the attitude in which we deal with what is going on in our life and our world, which takes us to the way this stuff works. And what it does is it shows up, Spirit, this infinite potential, shows up in our world at the level of our consciousness, at the level in which we are choosing to use it in our life and in our world. Because I'll tell you, there's individuals out there whose lives just don't seem the prettiest, and yet they're happy. How is that possible? It is that attitudinal, it's Spirit. That's the way it works. It is their choice. I've seen people that have had great fortune in their life, and they're miserable. And I've seen other individuals who don't appear to have much going on in their world, and they're happy. I mean, how is that possible? I've seen individuals with great abundance, and they're just having a horrendous time in life because they're behind these golden bars, and just life's not working for them. And yet I've seen other individuals who don't seem to have much going on, and they're just whistling through life as happy as can be. Or how about famous individuals that have amassed great fortunes who have committed suicide? And other obscure individuals we know who are not even on the radar, and they're happy. Or individuals who seem to be the expression of perfect health, and they're always complaining about something. And yet it's someone in a wheelchair whose lives are just filled with joy, and they're happy. It comes down to the attitude to which we bring things. Now, I'm not professing that you need to be miserable or sick, to be abundant and filled with joy. I don't profess that you've got to be into struggle or sickness or celibacy or being poor to experience joy and happiness in your life. I'm totally the contrary. I'm all for using this Spirit to show up in abundant ways. But I grew up at home with this plaque of my dad sitting in our breakfast room. It says, it's better to be healthy and wealthy than poor and sick. I got it. I'm all for that one. So are you letting the universe love you? Okay, we can do a little bit better than that. Classes are on Mondays and Tuesdays around here. I want you to get it's important to allow the universe to love you, because the universe is generous. It is infinite. It has got everything, and it is ready to express itself. It is looking to express through you. As Ernest said, we live in a realm of infinite possibilities that are forever seeking expression through us. But you've got to let the universe love you. Ernest, he's our founder, and we're working on the basics, so I keep going back to his stuff today. But he said, if God is to interpret itself to us, it must interpret itself through us. And the Spirit can make no gift that we do not accept. For the thing then works for us by working through us and is us always. It cannot work for us in any other way. It spreads itself over the whole universe and shouts at us from every angle. But it can become power to us only when we recognize it. Hey, Christian, here I am. Therefore, our belief sets the limit of a demonstration of a principle which of itself is without limits. It is ready to fill everything because it is infinite. So it is not a question of its willingness nor its ability. It's entirely a question of our receptivity. Spirit's infinite. It's everywhere. It's omnipresent. It's all things. That's a lot. Yeah? Infinite means there is nothing else, right? There can't be the infinite and you. You got to be part of the infinite, or there would be infinite and you, infinite and sickness, infinite and No. There is the infinite showing up, as Ernest was telling us, at the level of our consciousness that says, really, the headlines are not good and my life's miserable. or I'm into struggle, or I'm into joy, and it doesn't matter what the circumstance may be, I know that I'm the divine download of greater abundance and good and joy and happiness, and my life is working, and I'm filled with success, and I'm living a fulfilled life. And nothing and no one and no headline can deny that for me. Comes down to that. See, there's a secret. That's not really that big of a secret, but I just want us to be aware that we have this infinite capacity. Right? We're of the infinite, which means we have this infinite capacity. Okay, follow me on this. Because this is the way it works. You know, we have this infinite capacity that is forever seeking to express itself at the level in which we are able to embrace, or as we're told that it's done unto you as you believe. I mean, that's very simple. We make it a lot harder. But that's basically where it's at. And so as we begin to recognize our infinite capacity, we begin to have it show up in our life, but we tend to forget, though it's not really a big secret, because all the sages and the mystics from the beginning of time have shouted from the rooftops of your magnificence, and the mystical meaning you are spirit expressing, and yet our society has helped to keep us to forget that. You know, in the old days when we didn't have as much going on to keep our mind occupied, you had the religions telling us, this is how you have to behave, and you go outside of like this physical dimension, we're burning you. You know, and so that fear kind of kept you from exploring those extra vibrational possibilities that are beyond this three-dimensional world. But now they don't even need to do that, and that's because what we've got so much going on is media. You know how much time you spend with your social media? You don't have to answer it. It's not a class, but kind of rhetorical for you to think. I mean, how much time do you look at your computer screen, or answer your emails, or take a look at your iPad, or how about your iPhone? Yeah. Now, I'm not even talking TV. There's a possibility we might actually spend more than 30 minutes a day looking at screens. I'm not pointing any fingers here. I'm just helping us to think that, you know what, if all of a sudden our time is occupied with all this screen time, we need to get that fixed, guys. I look really pale. I really have long hair. What I want us to get is that if our minds are occupied looking at screen, putting a screen in our face before we go to bed, or we wake up looking at the screen, we're using up the time for us to connect with the infinite, that which is beyond the physical dimension. All of a sudden, our minds are occupied and not in that space where spirit is flowing. And we have this infinite capabilities. And what spirit is constantly trying to do is to prove false our perception of our inadequacy, that we are not enough, or that we are not infinite, by replacing it with the concept of your magnificence and your magnitude. But if you're busy, like this, you're not available for the divine download. You've got other things going on in your field of awareness that denies your conscious connection with that infinite source. As much time as you spend with Spirit is as much time as Spirit's going to keep showing up in your life and calling to you. As Ernest says, shouting at us from everywhere. We are living in this realm of infinite possibilities, which is where the arts come from. The great literature, these beautiful inventions and the magnificent music and the songs and the creativity of the divine and the beautiful expressions of governance and wisdom. They come from individuals who have tapped into the infinite and brought it into the collective consciousness of the culture. This is where it's coming from. And Spirit is forever looking to do that through you. And as high as you raise your field of awareness into the infinite is how high your life will reflect that. And the only way you're going to know how high it is what's going on in your life. And what is going on in your life is the feedback as to where it is you're playing. Ernest Holmes, he writes, still from this week's readings, I think it's page 40 here, from what it does. We are immersed in an infinite intelligence, a mind that knows all things. And it is also true that this intelligence can equate us with the ideas only as we are able and willing to be receptive to that wisdom. And then it can reveal its secrets. But it must have an outlet. Perhaps the simplest way to state the proposition is to say that we are surrounded by a mind or intelligence that knows everything. The potential knowledge of all things exists within this mind. Here is what it does. What we draw from it, we must draw through the channels of our own mind. The unity must be established. That's next week's talk on prayer. But a conscious connection must be made before we can derive the benefits which the greater mind is willing to reveal or impart to us. It's generous. It wants us. You got to get that. And so the universe is impersonal, and it gives alike to all. And it has been said that we can know God only insofar as we can become God. Some places would call that blasphemy. How can you become God? But Ralph Waldo Emerson, the great American essayist, said, it's unity that passes into multiplicity. Ernest Holmes talks about diversity proceeding from unity. That's how it happens. From the one comes the many. There's many facets on the diamond. You are that. So when you read or hear something going on, that may be situational, circumstantial. But what do you do with that? See, that's the way it works. There's this little kid. I don't know if he's little. His name was Ryan Rayleigh. He's Canadian. And 6 years old. You may have seen this video. It's called Ryan's Wells. It's on YouTube. You can watch it. And Ryan, at the age of 6, started school. There was a new teacher, wanted the kids to be inspired by, what's going on in the world. And she shared the story of these children in Africa and tribes in Africa who don't have any water, how their children have to walk miles every day to get clean water and walk miles back. And instead of going to school, that's what they had to do. And that we could help them and build a well there for $70. Well, this little 6-year-old got so excited, he went home and asked his mom and dad for $70. Little 6-year-old, man, $70. That's like, well, Ryan, we're generous, but what do you need that for? And he explained, and they saw his passion, and they're charitable family, but that's a lot of money to give a little guy, and they said that he could earn it. They're thinking he might kind of. So they gave him extra chores, washing windows, washing cars, sweeping, putting away dishes, all those things. And by the time he earned $70, he was filled with passion. He got his mom to say, okay, I'm ready to put in a well. And she, well, now what do we do with the $70? And so they found an organization that builds wells. She loaded them up into the car. They went to the organization's headquarters. And Ryan is probably 7 by now, goes in there and gives the head woman or the chairperson of this organization $70. And she shared with the reality with Ryan, I don't quite know where you got the figure $70 building wells. In reality, it's $2,000. Looked to mom and said, I don't have that many chores. And so he decided to go around the neighborhood and start working. This lady who ran this organization put his story of raising $70 in the newsletter, and all of a sudden the newspaper picked it up, the newspaper shared it, and all of a sudden it went viral, and all of the money started rolling in to this organization. The lady called Ryan and said, you know what? You have just raised the $2,000 and then some to build the well. Where do you want it to go? And so he started researching. He found an organization in Uganda. They sent the money and they built the well, and his mom and dad decided to take their son there to have the experience. And the video starts with this son driving into this village, and the streets are lined as long as you can see with all the people of the village, and this little kid gets out of the car and they just stand applauding him as he walks down this line of people and turns on and takes a drink of water from the well that he put there. So and his organization's still going on, and they're building wells all around the world because it's such a big thing. But I want you to see that here is a kid who heard a story and decided to do something with it. See, you've got the circumstances and the situations, but the way the Spirit works and what it does is it works through you at the level of your belief. He didn't doubt he was going to build a well. He didn't read the headline and say, isn't that terrible? There's nothing I can do. We saw a phenomenon happen yesterday when the women of our country and of the globe they united together in a way that we haven't seen for, I don't know, ever. We had 50 women jump on the bus with Callie and our Seaside Sisters, went down to San Diego, where I heard this morning there were 40,000 women walking there. joining in solidarity with Washington, D.C. that had 500,000 women walking there. Denver, 150,000. Seattle, 125,000. I heard and read in the paper today, I don't know who gets these figures, but 750,000 in L.A. alone. And this is just the United States. Maybe part of the beauty of what's going on in our country with women standing up and saying, you know what? Social justice is just an inalienable right that is everybody's. You know, you had the women there that were marching in the suffragette outfits saying, not again, but the women's equality is just what is the right thing. You can't tell me what I am going to do with my body. And as they stood and made a declaration and a vibration for our nation to remember the truth that there is this feminine energy that is just as countable as the patriarchal energy, and it is the balance of the two that are powerful. The globe stood up for this. Good job, Kelly, for getting our women out there. Good, right. Okay. And so I come back to what we do when we hear information. It's just information. It's the attitude. And what Spirit does is begins to move in the manner that matters to our heart and our soul. There's nothing too large. And what we are seeing now take place, because what we thought was going on here is taking place on a planet that says we are all equal. And this is going on in different countries because of a question that was risen in our home, in our place. Things happen, but what do we do with that? The former CEO of the Office Depot, Steve Odland, he said that you can tell a lot. He called it the waiter perspective. You can tell a lot about a person, how they treat a waiter or a waitress in a restaurant. You can tell their personality. And he said he learned that when he was waiting on tables in a very fancy French, high-end French restaurant, and he spilled purple sorbet on this person's white, elegant, expensive, important person kind of outfit. And she was very gracious and said, that's okay. It wasn't your fault. And it was in that moment he came to realize, which became just a core principle in his life, that forgiveness trumps self-importance. That if I'm able to be kind, that just about anything can be healed. He asked His Holiness the Dalai Lama, what is religion? That's right. Kindness is his religion. Kindness will transform what is going on in our lives and in our world, because that presence of God is always there. The grace of God is always there, always available. And then I'll have people ask me in class, not Sundays, though sometimes that happens. But they say, so if grace is always present, why are people suffering? Why are we spending trillions of dollars to defend oil when we could be feeding the starving children and educating them on our planet? Why are there incurable diseases? How come if I'm intended for love, I can't find that ideal relationship? How come my partner cheated on me when I have been so devoted to our relationship? And, these deep, heart-searching questions, but I want us to get that the fact that we start asking the question is the beginning of the transformation, because there's a realization that, there's something out of balance here, that this pain is not of the spiritual expression, that all of a sudden sorrow, whatever state it shows up, is to remind us that, this kingdom is not expressing, the divine is not here, and that it is important for us to open our eyes. But part of the bigger challenge, and more painful than the pain that I see people in, is that the people tend to be oblivious. They are in this numb state that they don't see what is going on, that they just choose to operate that everything is fine and I'm going to check my email. I'm going to check my Facebook. I'm not going to meditate on the sorrow that is showing up here, that children don't have water, or that we need to stand up for our rights. And what has happened is that our culture has fallen into this deep slumber. And what is essential sometimes is that pain or that sorrow to shake us enough and realize that the presence and expression of God is missing here. And when we start asking these questions and say, how can this be happening? We begin to open our consciousness for the divine download that the artists and the literary greats and the musicians and those of great wisdom are recipients of, because Spirit is looking to download that awareness to the masses that Spirit is prevalent when we're willing to take our eyes off the headlines, take our eyes off the fear, and recognize that sometimes in life it takes a correction of our course to get us back in alignment. That there's this road sign. It said, "Thank you for your patience. This is a temporary inconvenience for a permanent solution." It wasn't quite that, but that was it was a little more poetic. It may come to me, but you won't get it. Please excuse the temporary inconvenience for the forget it. You get it. Where I'm getting at with that. It's as we begin to open up and recognize, there's more here. There's just more than the physical. We know that. But you know how many people just think this is it? I mean, the physical is it, this body. And we take the next step and say, well, I'm really within this body. I mean, I'm not really medically inclined, so I don't really like thinking about what's in there. It's a little too not my thing. I'm spiritual. I leave those for the physical practitioners. But in my brief exploration, I've never discovered like this little chamber where I am. There's not like this little room where I'm in there moving the levers of my arms and my hands and my mouth and telling the brain to think. I'm not like inside this. Who I am is far more this. And I've just so seen it. When I remember sitting with my mom, when she took her last breath, and just, sitting there with her, and afterwards with the body meditating. Or my dad, when his spirit left his body, and just sitting with his body and looking at them. Their bodies, my mom's or my dad's. And that's not my mom. I mean, that's not my dad. I mean, the body was them, but there was a life force that was the love that used the body as a vehicle. And God knows I'd love to get another hug from my mom or my dad. But what I realized is there was something inside those bodies that had them sacrificing their life so I could go to Europe as a kid, or what they had to give up so I could go to college. There was a spirit inside of them that transcended the physical. And as I sat there and realized that they are not that physical vehicle, that's not who they are, but it was a vehicle in which they used to express love in my life, I began to have a new kind of relationship that is no longer bound to the physical being or the body, but rather there is a vibration of love that will probably give me a wonderful spiritual hug tonight since I talked about them. They always like that. It hasn't changed. I can still hear my dad say, "I'm so proud of you, son," and my mom, "Speak up." But that spirit is still so there for me that I have learned to communicate in a new kind of way that is not bound by the physical realm. What happens is we get so bound by what is the circumstance in our life, or what the headline is saying, or what the fear is that people are promoting. Well, I want to tell you that James Thurber, American humorist, wrote that, don't look back with regret or anger. And don't look forward with fear, but look around with awareness. See, you want to look around. If you want to discover the presence of God and the options, the infinite possibilities that are seeking expression through you, you got to get to that mountaintop view where all of a sudden you're above the circumstantial and situational kind of things and realize, I have the attitudinal choice here to be happy. Even if I am in a wheelchair, even if I am reading this headline, even if I see the potential of difficulties here, I know that I have an option. Jonathan Livingston Seagull, sometimes you just got to go back to the basics, man, to the beginning. And in the early days, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, I think was teaching Chang, says, if you want to fly as fast as thought anywhere, you begin by being there already. That's what happens when we choose awareness. And we don't take that awareness and put it on that which we fear. We take that awareness and put it upon that which brings the joy. The sorrow may show, you know what, something's out of balance here and it's not working, but I'm starting to ask questions and say, you know, this isn't right. And what Spirit does and the way it works is it shows up in my life at the level of my attitude or my belief or my consciousness. Not what I'm thinking that's stuck in here in the brain, but the sum total, the totality is what Ernest talks about of our consciousness, which is our full being that animates this body, but it's not hanging out in a room inside this body. It is something that is moving in this infinite sea of infinite possibilities, that is infinity itself, that is localizing itself with this greater sense of awareness. Ernest Holmes ends the chapter with saying, as high as you shall make your mark in mind and spirit, so high shall be your outward demonstration. So high as you make your mark. Didn't say the headlines. It said you. And so my challenge is for you to be courageous enough to look at those difficult spots in your life, those dark attitudes, those pains, whether in your body or your world, and check in and recognize that sorrow, that misery. I don't call it what you want. Doesn't have to be. It's talked about individuals in wheelchairs who are as happy as can be. Little kids who can change whole villages on the planet. Individuals who don't have much in their world and yet are a vibrancy of light for the world. You have a choice. Give your power away to your body and the circumstances, or choose to express the infinite that you already are. You do that by sharpening that tusk in the times of peace, times of calm. So when you're challenged, you go with your strength rather than your weakness. God bless you as we do this together. Love you.
Shandakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham Shandakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadaram Gagana Sadrasham Shandakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham. Amen. Dominus illuminatio me. Amen. Dominus illuminatio me. Amen. Vishnu, 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 Alleluia. Vishnu, 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 Vishnu. Shantakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadaram Gaganasadrasham Shantakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadaram Gaganasadrasham Shantakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham. Amen. Alleluia. Namaste.